gun to your head and pull the trigger.
For whatever reason, Buzzfeed seems to have it in for the atheist and skeptic community. They broke the non-story, or largely non-story, about Krauss, and now they seem to have gone after David Silverman, who was the kind of mouthpiece for American Atheists, and did a lot of good work, particularly illustrating the hypocrisy of religious billboards by putting up atheist billboards and using the publicity and the scandal and the outrage of people over those to make his point about religiosity and so forth. It's not the same. There are still things that give me cause for concern, but I'm going to front load this by trying to kind of head off at the pass some of the complaints and so on that were directed at my videos about Krauss. Now, look, I am not defending the person in either case, at least not directly. They may or may not have done anything. If they turn out to have done something genuinely, I will of course condemn them, provided I find it to be an outrage. Sometimes the law is an arse. But what I'm defending is the principle, the idea that one should be presumed innocent until proven guilty. Now, in other communities, I might make certain allowances, I might sway and bend slightly and understand why they wouldn't necessarily operate on that basis. But of all communities, outside of law and order or the scientific communities, I think atheists and skeptics should be people who place a premium on the value of evidence, who shouldn't believe something purely on the basis of an accusation. And yet here we are, and we have even fairly prominent members of this community, like PZ Myers, just rolling along with whatever accusations happen to come past their eyeballs. When it comes to your friends, sure, you might be biased towards believing them. But that's the very reason why you probably shouldn't be involved in any investigation or anything that goes on in this. So what I am arguing for is not that they're innocent, not that they're guilty necessarily, just that we should withhold judgment in the court of public opinion just as much as in a legal court. So please try and understand that is what I'm saying. I am not saying that they didn't do whatever it is they're accused of. I'm saying that we should require proof before we condemn someone, rather than just allowing a mere accusation to be enough. Sure, you can be more cautious about them or whatever, but they shouldn't be removed from positions, sidelined from conferences or whatever else without some actual genuine proof of wrongdoing. Now, the Silverman situation is rather different. There hasn't been quite as much bandwagoning with Krauss, probably because he's not quite so high profile or quite so esteemed necessarily. He is also much more socially adept than Krauss. So there's less willingness, I think, to say that it could be down to misunderstandings or spurgy behaviour or not reading social cues and so on. It's also, in the case of Silverman, wrapped up in some financial irregularities as well, and some suggestions of conflict of interest. And this is a bit different, because those kind of things are a case in where the appearance of impropriety is enough. Whether something improper or not went on, a conflict of interest, i.e. him having a sexual relationship with somebody who then got a position close to or under him or approved by him, no pun intended. The mere appearance of wrongdoing is sufficient, and this was something that was very hard to seemingly get across to people during Gamergate, that you didn't actually have to have done anything wrong, but the fact that you gave someone you were close to a good review or positive coverage, or you name dropped them constantly and they were your roommate or your lover or your wife or your husband or your son or whatever else, just the appearance of that was a breach of ethics within journalism. And similarly here, giving someone a position in an organisation like this that you're involved with, raises the spectre of bias and problems, and you shouldn't do it, even if you're doing it for other reasons than the fact that you're boning them. So that's valid. There's the financial improprieties, conflicts of interest over selling his book, I think, and so on. Again, the mere appearance of impropriety is enough, and we wouldn't really expect an organisation like American Atheists to roll out a document explaining all the ways in which he duped them, took their money and whatever else. That would likely be something internal, and they are saying that the financial improprieties and the conflicts of interest are sufficient grounds upon which to remove him. And we have no real way of judging that, and it's not really any of our business, particularly either if we're outside that organisation. If you're a member of the organisation, maybe it's more your business, and maybe you should poke and prod and ask. But they're saying that, that's sufficient reason to remove him from his position without the alleged sexual improprieties. Now, we only really have any details on one of these alleged sexual improprieties, and that's not really that damning. In that instance, we have him attempting to seduce someone that he knew was into BDSM, who was into BDSM, pushing it, trying the dirty talk, perhaps a little bit of slightly rough play and so on, but he stopped immediately. They invoked a safe word. He stopped immediately. So clearly, whether or not he was into BDSM or understood about establishing levels of consent and so on beforehand, the fact that he stopped immediately, that the safe word was invoked, suggests that he was operating on the basis of consent, and even in the heat and passion of the moment. And this speaks well to his character and his actions in sexual situations. The fact that he would just stop flat on, especially if he didn't have a particularly large amount of experience with the scene, the community, and whatever else. So given that, accusing him of assault, whatever it is, however they're characterizing it, doesn't sit right with me, and I worry that it's going to cause more demonization of kinky BDSM type people and communities, such as we've seen in the Drupal community and elsewhere. So that doesn't sit right to me. And the other thing the other claim there, we don't have enough information on to go on. So, like I say, it's different to the Krauss situation. I'm inclined to say, okay, yeah, he should have been removed on the basis of the financial claims. But the sexual claims muddy the waters there. Is their chief concern the financial problems, the conflict of interest, which are fairly minor, really? Or is it the sexual allegations, and then they're using the financial allegations and the potential misconduct and so on as an excuse to remove him because of the sexual alleged misconduct? That's the worry. It's also concerning in that we see the old Atheism Plus and hangers on, like Myers, who, despite saying he wasn't involved in Atheism Plus, pretty much was. And he's definitely on that side of the aisle, using this, exploiting this, along with Krauss and accusations against Shermer, which seemed to fizzle, but did exist, and others seem to be using these accusations to try and get more leverage, or to suggest there's a far bigger problem in the community than there actually is, and to push things like codes of conduct and anti-harassment policies, which are unnecessary, because anything here that has been alleged would have been coverable under criminal law. So you don't need to turn your events and so on into puritanical, teetotaler, not one drop shall pass my lips meetings, in order for these things to be prosecutable or to deal with them. It's just completely unnecessary. It's an unnecessary level of bureaucracy. It's busy work and so on that's not needed. Now, most, if not all, of these accusations center around nerd proms, conventions, meetings, and these places these things, just as they are with gaming conventions or furry conventions or BDSM kink markets or whatever else. They are places for people to hook up. It's that kind of atmosphere. You're surrounded by people who have similar ideals and beliefs to you, and these are things that you look for in a partner, whether for a night or a lifetime, you know. And just the sheer fact of being around those people is heady. So it's not that surprising that bad interactions take place, especially with the number of spurgy people in the atheist skeptic community. But we've got to such a point where the slightest misunderstanding, or even an example of good behaviour, which, you know, as described, I think Silverman's behaviour in stopping immediately at the invocation of a safe word, and the fact that that was reported, that's good behaviour. That's good. But the sexual allegations are muddying the waters, and every accusation that doesn't have any evidence to back it up, every accusation that doesn't look like real, genuine impropriety, weakens the case for anyone who would want to come forward with something that is genuine. And my concern is that people are using these things as political point scoring to attack their enemies within the community, rather than through any sort of genuine desire to attack these issues, and also as a second attempt to try and bend the atheist skeptic community into a social justice community. Why not both? Be an atheist and a skeptic in one place, be a social justice campaigner or whatever else in another, but try and keep the social justice to actual social justice, not whatever this monstrosity is that it has become. So I don't think this is the same as Krauss. I think Silverman's removal is probably justified by whatever financial irregularities have gone on. Otherwise, we simply don't know. The second sexual misconduct allegation, we don't really have anything to go on, and the one that we do have details on looks like he did the right thing. So again, I'm just going to urge caution and remind people that as skeptics, we should demand evidence before we believe anything, whether it be an accusation or the existence of God. Zang.
Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the